The threat of home repossession can obviously terrify people having problems paying their mortgage. But how real is that threat? Are the banks serious about taking people's homes off them? Or are they simply trying to get people to engage with them? We'll be discussing that question in a moment. But first, Ethna O'Brien reports on the facts behind the debate.
Headline after headline has talked about a wave of repossessions coming down the tracks. But how often are those threats realised? The Central Bank says that there are almost 31,000 legal cases in relation to repossession of residential homes before the courts, and a further 18,000 for buy-to-lets. But this does not mean that anything like that number of houses will be repossessed. According to the Central Bank, even where proceedings are in progress, in many cases lenders and borrowers may still agree an alternative solution and avoid repossession. Last year, a total of 1,771 properties were handed over to the banks, either through repossession or voluntary surrender. However, that is a significant increase in 2013, when 984 properties were handed over or repossessed. Of those 1,771 properties, 313 family homes were repossessed through court order and another 998 were surrendered or abandoned. 170 buy-to-let homes were repossessed, while another 131 were voluntarily surrendered. The question is, are the banks dealing with the most extreme cases first before getting to the thousands of mortgage holders who are in arrears, or will the nightmare scenario never become a reality?
Ethna O'Brien reporting. I'm joined now by David Hall of the Irish Mortgage Holders Association and Seamus Coffey, economics lecturer at UCC and one of the authors of an opinion piece in today's Irish Times which claims the court system is not being used to repossess family homes. Seamus, that'll come as news to a lot of groups that are working with people in mortgage distress.
Yeah, well, what we've done over the last couple of weeks is we actually attended court sessions and seen what's happening. And what we've seen is actually, given the cases that are there and the number of cases that are there, very few repossession orders are actually being granted. They are being granted because there are people out there who haven't paid mortgages in 3, 4, 5, 6 years even. And people in those situations are having repossession orders set against them. But in the main, if people are making a genuine effort, what we've seen in the court is that the county registrar, particularly in Cork, is very understanding of borrowers, look at the situation they're in and is willing to give them more time.
Yeah, but even on your own figures, you wrote on your blog about a session in Cork, a quarter of the cases that were there actually ended up in the homes being repossessed, 16 out of 64. That
was on one particular day, yes, and then I was back again on Wednesday, and 2 out of 81 resulted in repossessions. Now, of the day when there was 16 repossessions, 14 of those people weren't even in court. So when the applicant made looking for the repossession order, there was no one there to answer against it. And some of those cases, mortgages hadn't been paid since 2008, 2009. Now, of those 16, we found out what type of properties they were in 14 instances, and 6 of them were actually vacant. So these are houses that nobody is paying for and nobody is using. It'd be far better to have those in situations where people are using them and people are paying them. 4 of them were buy-to-lets, where rent was being collected but it wasn't being passed on to the banks, and 4 of them were primary dwelling homes. But again, you're looking at 4 or 5 years where 0 has been paid. The borrowers had a number of occasions to come to court and actually present their case to the court, but they didn't show up. OK, David Hall, so what Seamus is saying basically is that homes are only repossessed when people refuse to engage with the banks in any way and refuse to pay anything at all towards the mortgage.
Now, I think Seamus and his colleagues undertook a study stroke research, stroke attending court for a few weeks. And respectfully, personally I've been doing this for 4.5 years. There are many others in other organisations who have been doing this a lot longer. The results are void of understanding the process. They have gone in at the end of the stream, not understanding how people have gotten there. And if you take a couple of the examples that are given by Seamus and Brendan and Carl, by their own definition, which is the adjournments that were made for people who are making payments. The question is, why were they in court if they were making payments and will not lose their home? The fact is that the bar stool advice that's being given to people used to be the case when the old code of conduct was in place, which allowed for people to be making payments and for the court to take cognizance of that and not repossess the house. In July 2013, that code of conduct removed that provision. So there are many people who cannot pay the full amount, cannot pay enough to restructure the loan, and the banks are simply taking action to repossess their homes. And the key question is very simple, and I accept one or two Seamus' points. I'm not here to apologise for someone who's sitting at home, where Seamus tends to think, and his colleagues, with a big fat cigar and a glass of champagne, and making a strategic decision not to pay the bank.
Okay,
no one's going to defend that.
Clearly there are situations where people are simply refusing to engage with the banks at all and are not paying anything at all.
But David, here's the point that blows the entire argument out of the water. For those people who have engaged with the bank, and the guys respectfully ignore this point, for those who do engage with the bank, for the people they witnessed in a handful of days. I've been attending court for 4.5 years. Last year we did 2,500 deals and have helped over 10,000 people. Not 300 sample cases without full financial information. How many people who have engaged with their banks, filled in the financial information, supplied their payslips and bank statements, and the bank has decided, in accordance with the rules from the regulatory authority, which is their central bank, have said, game over, we're repossessing the house? That's the key question. It's a significant majority. And I'll ask a question now.
Sorry, so what is the figure, though?
The banks are saying 50% of those people they've issued repossession proceedings at the moment have been evaluated as being unsustainable. The central bank have issued figures last Thursday, the March figures. Etna's report mentioned one of the figures. The second figure that's been mentioned is 16,684. The banks have decided, having assessed the case, not having them not engaged, having assessed the case, that the mortgage is unsustainable, and they're required to do so by the central bank. The people, and one of the biggest dangers of today is, this article today gives a clear indication that people can pay money and stay in their homes. That's not the case.
Okay, Seamus.
What we're looking at is not the interaction between the borrower and the bank, and clearly David has a lot of experience in that. What we're looking at is the borrower's experience in court. And while a bank might judge a mortgage to be unsustainable, that's not really a judgment that's made in the court. The key issue in court is whether somebody's making a payment against their mortgage.
That's not
if somebody has already been told by the bank that it's game over,
that's not
it doesn't matter.
Now, what the county registrar is looking for is somebody making a genuine effort to actually make payments against their mortgage. I saw one instance, and we saw lots of instances, where people had made no payment. In Cork, there was one instance of a family who paid no payment on their mortgage since 2009, zero. They turned up in court and said, look, we're trying to reach a resolution, we're trying to get our repayment capacity to increase, and that case was adjourned. The legal representative for the bank was there saying these people haven't paid in 6 years, and the county registrar adjourned the case and said, come back in October and we'll see where we stand. That's after 6 years of no payment. I've recently been at a situation where the central bank presented research on long-term arrears, and one of the questions asked was, how do the results in Ireland compare to other countries? And the person doing the research says, we have nothing to compare it to. We're looking at long-term arrears in Ireland of 2 years or more. That doesn't happen around the world. We're the only country where people have gone 2, 3, 4, 5 years without paying their mortgage, and nothing is happening. Yes, there are people going to the likes of the Irish Mortgage Holders Association and FLAC and MABS, etc. But there's a huge cohort of people out there who are not paying anything on their mortgage, and they're not going to anyone. They're not turning up at constituency clinics, and they're not going to the advocacy agencies. Where these people will be seen is in the court system, and that's what we're seeing. We're seeing situations where mortgages haven't been paid for years, and something must be done about that.
But we're back to the same stuff. And again, like, you know, I would hate to be in a court where Brendan, Carl or Seamus respectively were on a jury, because their policy is everyone is guilty until proven innocent. And the simple facts, these are facts, David, and it's very, very important.
I don't think they're saying that.
No, but they're saying...
We're saying if somebody's paying their mortgage, their house should not be repossessed.
Your opinion piece today is absolutely clear in tone and in intent to vilify borrowers. And you've assumed one very dangerous thing, which is that all banks...
I'd like to see a sentence you take from that piece where borrowers are vilified. Give us one sentence from that piece where borrowers are vilified.
I can pick 3. If you want to see them, I have 3 marked here that I'll gladly show you. The reality is that there are a number of borrowers who have been trying to engage with their lenders. You've made the assumption, a very dangerous assumption, and very much bank propaganda that has us half in this problem, that banks provide a comprehensive list of solutions. The fact is...
Again, we're not looking at the interaction between the banks and the borrowers.
The 3 lines
we're looking at the interaction between the borrowers and the court.
The central bank don't require anyone to provide any level of solutions.
Okay.
Along your last paragraph here, we have seen 3 cases where the borrowers wanted to surrender the homes and the county registrar adjourned these cases. Like, before people get into those courts, you've made the assumption that the court system is trying to protect them. Those people have been told by the bank in advance, pre-getting into the court system, we're outside the mortgage arrears resolution process. You have an unsustainable mortgage.
Borrowers?
In one case, the borrowers claimed that they had signed the voluntary surrender forms, and on 2 occasions the lender had lost the paperwork. Even though the lender wanted possession of the borrower's commons, the county registrar...
That's vilifying
the bank. What was in the courts?
You have to finish the entire thing. Repossession cases are almost always painted as a struggling family made homeless by an eviction. Up at the top here, you actually made one comment here. You said that some people actually arrived in Court can be intimidating. Most people who turn up were very worried, although curiously, some seemed nonchalant. That's the tone of your opinion piece.
Well, he's only talking about some people, in fairness.
No, but we're saying...
But where are the borrowers being vilified there?
But they're being vilified through the entire thing, where you claim that they're guilty of not engaging. You're giving the impression...
Somebody who pays nothing on their mortgage should have something done against that.
They can't pay, Seamus.
Zero.
What do you want them to do?
There's no situation where people get
printers?
accommodation for zero. There is no situation in this country where people get accommodation for zero.
No, but they do
if
get
you're on
state
rent
support.
supplement,
You do
if you're
get
in social
exactly.
housing, you have to pay something.
Hold on a second.
We people for 5 or 6 years have paid zero. These cases are now showing up in the courts.
What do
we do with somebody who's paying zero on their mortgage?
Sorry, Seamus.
You assess their circumstances. You assess their circumstances.
But isn't that what the court does?
No, the court, no, and that's a mistake here, David. The court does not. The court. So Clark versus Stepstone should be looked at by everyone in the entire country. 2 months ago, a family who is eligible for a state-sponsored, state-promoted and state-funded programme, mortgage to rent, was put forward with affidavits from all parties confirming their eligibility. The court, Justice White, ruled categorically, I have no authority to force a bank to provide or participate in any voluntary arrangement.
Okay,
full
Seamus.
stop.
I agree with that. What the court is looking at is whether somebody is making a repayment on their mortgage. And what this is showing is that there's a cohort of people out there paying zero. I'm sure there are people that are clients of the Irish Mortgage Holder Association who are paying zero. And what happens in the court is that some of these people come back. Like David has presented figures where 400 of his clients had legal proceedings issued against them that were live. Of those, 48 resulted in repossession order grants, 12%. 88% of them, using David's figures, are now back engaging, back in the system,
Correct.
back paying.
You're 100% right.
So this works in many cases.
In many cases, but you're missing. You're making the dangerous assumption.
Where nothing is happening.
You're making the dangerous assumption that people can pay.
Of the total number of proceedings that are out there, you're looking at maybe 12% ending up in repossession orders, and that's what your data is showing. So yes, there might be 30,000 cases coming through. You have 12,000 that result in repossession orders. That's 3,500. That's probably still a small figure given the scale of the non-payment that's out there.
The alleged non-payment. The banks have categorically told the central bank they believe 31,000 people will lose their family homes. We've said 25,000. There needs to be solutions.
Your figures say 3,500.
I'm afraid
they say 25,000 what's been said for 4.5 years consistently. And the figures will be seen soon and we'll know who's right.
We will see soon enough. Thank you very much, gentlemen, both, for joining us. Miriam.
Well, now, the RTE Investigations Unit reports on a former health board, which we can't name for legal reasons, and how it repeatedly failed to protect vulnerable children and adults placed in the care of a foster family. In one case, a vulnerable person was eventually removed from the foster family 17 years after the first reports of care failings and allegations of abuse